So you're gonna take a picture?
Yes, I would love that. I never show up usually.
Cool.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
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 Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Good morning. So we are very excited you guys are here, those that are visiting us and those that are connected. Good morning, students. Today we start with the Laredo Festival. Thank you for all the attention that we have done and for getting us started. But we want to really thank our speakers because they're going the extra mile. And there are, in one way or another, contributing for this year festival. Let me just tell you a little bit of Jerry Ramirez. And Jerry Ramirez is a radio personality in 107.3 FM. Jerry has also been known as J-Ram, has been in this station since 2016. Prior to that, he's been working, creating podcasts for more than 10 years. He loves radio, and I know that. I have listened to him. He was introduced also to the syndicated show from New York called Opie and Anthony. All right? Listening to that show and recently purchasing a Mac, he started doing more of this. But if you have heard J-Ram in the radio, you know that he has always made his best impression. I think a lot of people don't know the work that he has done. He's been a guest in Coffee and Magic, and he has also been our speaker for at least, this is the second time that he's been with us. So we're really happy that he's with us. For those that are watching online, send your questions. We'll give them to him at the end. For those that are here with us, thank you for being here, and let's give a round of applause to our first speaker, Jen Ramirez.
Thank you. I thought, so, do you know Opie and Anthony show?
Yes, I do.
That is hilarious, man.
Yes.
I thought I was the only nerd around here.
No way.
That stuff. Yeah, my name's Jerry, folks. Y'all are from Eagle Pass?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Laredo over here. How many people are on this thing over here? I'm kind of curious. Oh, well, I don't know. I can't see anything. Oh, there's my picture. Yeah, so I guess like the origins of Jerry and doing radio and all that stuff, right? So when I first got a Mac years ago, this was like 2008, 7, something like that, right? Years ago, right? I was like, well, I bought this stupid thing because of the, whatever, for whatever reason. And I said, I have $1,000 thing in front of me. Like, what am I going to do with this thing? So at that time, it was peak Opie and Anthony kind of thing going on. And look, let me tell you. So that show does not exist now.
Yeah.
Like that show cannot exist now. It was super inappropriate. It was different times and all that stuff. If you do go search that out, I mean, like no, a lot of it was really bad. So understand that I don't know any of that stuff, but it was a different thing. And what I really loved about that show was that they would kind of peel back the curtain on certain things. There was this character, not a character, but there was a DJ that would go on there, and his name was Denny. And Denny he was a super big like radio kind of guy, and they did a whole bit on him where he would hit the post. Now, have you all ever heard that before? Hit the post? No? So hitting the post on radio is when you talk right before the song, like when the song is starting, and right before the lyrics start, you end your thoughts. So, hey, welcome, it's 9 here on 107.3 FM, we're having a real good day, and then you hit the post. That's old school radio stuff, man. And it was super I got super curious on it, and I started kind of thinking more and more about this. So anyways, I got this, they're peeling back the curtain of radio and how that works and all that stuff, and I said, man, I can do this, and there's this thing called podcast, and everybody's kind of starting one. Why not? Why can't I start one? a lot of trial and error happened. There was a lot of stuff going on where trying to find connections for the microphone because back then USB stuff wasn't super common, like it is now. So trying to find a mixer to be able to plug it in and all that stuff. Anyways, from all that stuff came a podcast, and I've done a few of them. They're not on the internet anymore. I pulled them all because it takes money. Like it's $15 a month to have stuff at like each show, and it's kind of ridiculous. After you have 3 or 4 of them. And so it was The Sky is Falling, I think it was called. Angry Forecast was another one. And then just did a J-Ram show, right? That one kind of started getting some pretty good traction here in Laredo. We would have guests, we would have musicians, artists, stuff like that come in, and they do an acoustic set. All of a sudden, we were doing this thing on like Facebook Live, and we were getting like some pretty good views on it. And it was super interesting, super cool. Like, man, how in the heck did I get like some guy behind the camera and he's like pushing buttons and changing, camera settings and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like, man, it's just like pretty cool. So from there, I ended up talking with Sammy, and I got on his podcast, and he came on mine, Sammy the House. I don't know if you've heard of Sammy the House here in Laredo. And from there, he invited me over to his show, and then all of a sudden I kind of stuck around, From there, that was like my in for radio, and from there was some openings going on, so I started doing my own thing at 9 o'clock for 90s at 9 and all that stuff. And, that was pretty cool. We recently did a format change, so now we're doing 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'm just there from 9 to 10, right? But out of all that, right? So there was still that creative side of me of wanting to kind of like help people, right? That's always been in my thing, like I want to help people. So I hooked up with a friend of mine. We started doing a show on the radio also called 2 Hour Indie Hour. So that's just like, it's a super DIY. I don't know, is anybody into like indie music, like indie, Mom Jeans, I don't know, give me a indie song. Anybody know an indie song? Not mainstream.
User, the Growlers, well, that's a band.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, a band or, no? What do y'all listen to?
Mystic Braves?
No, that was super mainstream. That was super mainstream. I've seen them like twice.
Daniel Johnston?
Then is that what is that?
It's a indie folk.
Folky? Yeah, folk. That's kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah.
It was gonna be indie folk. Anyway, so it's super DIY kind of bands, and it was that scene. So then we start getting like emails from random bands that want to come through because they want to come through Austin, but they're like, oh, well, we heard about Laredo, so can we kind of can y'all host us? So we started hosting bands through that. We posted, Top Nachos, Pity Party, there's Church Girls, Launch, like, there are these pretty decent sized band, like popular bands out in that kind of world. And they're doing I don't know, have you all ever heard of Audio Tree Live?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. A lot of these bands have been on Audio Tree Live, and it just blows my mind. So it was just making doing that as a favor, and all of a sudden, we're talking to people from New York, from East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, like constantly. It's a thing, so through all this stuff of radio and the podcast and all that stuff, right? What's the end game, right? Like what is it? It's just making connections, right? Like making connections with people. You're talking, you're communicating. That's all we're doing is communicating with people constantly. Even if you're communicating with your phone, if you have an iPhone and you've ever done a shortcut, you're coding, you're communicating with your phone. So it's all about communication and making connections. That, I think, is the most fulfilling part out of all this stuff, is the communication aspect of it. So if anybody has any kind of passion towards radio, podcast, actually, anybody want to do a podcast? Yeah? Yeah? What interests you about a podcast? And animation, art, like, you know, the artistic side of things, and you would want to talk about that? Oh, the what, I'm sorry? Oh, debate, yeah, sure. See, so that's interesting you say that, because nobody wants to listen to a podcast or a radio show or anything on TV, and everybody agrees. Like, it's super boring. It's like, yeah, you know, this band's the coolest band in the world, and look at this riff and the chord progression. It's like, yeah, I agree. Well, that sucks. So, you really need that. I really encourage the debate aspect of it, and knowing that it's a healthy thing. Like, it's a healthy debate. Nobody's feelings get hurt or whatever. You know, like, it's your opinion versus somebody else's opinion, and if you don't want to agree to that, that's fine. I don't, you know, a lot of people say that the Foo Fighters are the greatest band in the world, and, you know, maybe that's not true. I'm kidding. Foo Fighters are great. Dave Grohl is legendary. But yeah, that's a really good point where I think that's something to keep in mind. Always have like some kind of back and forth. Find somebody. So I guess in your podcast, when you envision the podcast, is this by yourself or with somebody else? Oh, okay. So do you like a lot of this? And see, that's a whole dynamic there too. That's a whole dynamic there because you all know each other really well. And you all can jab at each other if you want to, right? Wow, okay. So do you, and you watch all that same stuff? Like you watch that anime and all that stuff?
And we have a lot of cool themes that we want to talk about. Like we don't have the same opinion, but I like the healthy conversation that you know this stuff and I know this stuff. Like we have conversation, healthy conversation, and we practice a lot also. We argue a lot.
Yeah. So for the people, you know, on the live stream and all that stuff, healthy conversations. There's you guys know you have your opinions on certain things, but you also understand that there's strengths and weaknesses within, and then you guys can complement each other through that, right?
Yeah, and it's important to have the research, like we talked about also. Have the research and information. Yeah.
Right. So research and information. All right, let's get into that. Whole bunch of people, and everybody has a podcast now, right? Everybody has an iPhone. They can download Anchor or whatever they want to do, or whatever, and upload a podcast. And all of a sudden, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. But they think and this isn't to knock anybody, right? Like, yeah, go do your thing, do it, but exactly, you need to research. You're not as interesting as Joe Rogan, right? If you think you are, then I don't know. But you need to do your research. You need to understand that you need to have talking points, and you need to hit those, right? If you have excess talking points, great, because then you can revisit later. Or yeah, you know what? We didn't need those because you had enough research and content to not have to have those extra 2-3 bullet points that you're going to talk about. So that's super important, is having the talking points. We used to have, in the JRAM show thing with the podcast, we used to have a shared document. We would do a Google Doc, and we would have a shared document. And whenever I had an idea or something, I put it on there, and everybody would see it. Or if there was a link to an article, I'd link it there, and it's like, this is what we're talking about this day. So it would have the date, and then it would have the notes, right? Everybody knew going in what we were going to do, right? So the prep work is super important. Whether it's in radio, podcast, or a TV show, even YouTube stuff. If you guys are into YouTube and want to do a YouTube channel, that's also super important that you have those talking points. Man, I want to get into some other stuff here. And I'm kind of curious now. What's y'all's names over here? Mariana and
Anayam.
Ana,
Anayam is the same name of backwards.
Ana,
Anayam.
Anairam,
Yeah.
Anairam, and
Mariana.
Mariana, Ana, Iram.
Anayam.
Duh! Can I just call you Ana?
Yeah.
All right. So I. All right. Let's try this. I'm kind of curious now. I'm kind of curious. We got time. Y'all aren't shy, right? Y'all aren't shy, right? No? All right. Come up here. And are there any questions on the live stream there? Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Cool. No. Y'all sit down. Y'all sit down. And I don't know, is there an extra mic by any chance? No? No, that's cool. That's cool. Sit down. Sit down. Come here. Yes. Mariana, right? Mariana. Okay. Do that first question. Just that one. Okay? Just that, and then I'll show you the other one. So this is what I want to try to do. This is what I want to try to do. There's interviews and stuff that you have to do throughout your podcast, the communication stuff and all that stuff, right? There's certain kind of questions, right, that will help you through this. She's going to ask you 3 of them. It's the same concept, but it's worded different. And let's see what we can get out of the 3 stages of that. Okay, those questions. All right, there we go. You remember that?
Do you like pizza?
You can sit down.
What did you say? Do you like pizza? Yeah, I like pizza. Okay, that's interesting. Pizza really, I really eat food. Okay. I don't know. I'm
So
sorry.
that's exactly what ends up happening with, that's exactly what ends up happening with a closed-ended question, right? Do you like pizza? Yeah. So, it's closed-ended, right? Now, so now we're going to ask the second one, all right? That's that. You see it?
Yeah, I like pizza.
No, but then,
What do you like pizza? Why? Why did I like pizza? Yeah.
yeah, go ahead and say it.
I like pizza because it tastes good. Yeah.
But,
Maybe not the best, but okay. I like pizza. I don't hate it. It's not my favorite, but okay. I love pizza. Everyone loves pizza, but I like pizza. I'm a pizza lover, so okay, I'm a liar.
okay, so now it got a little bit more, right? Like you got a little bit more on that, like why, right? So, do you like pizza, but why? Right?
I like it because it's food and tastes good.
It's food and tastes good. Yeah, there you go, right? So you got a little bit more on that, right? So now do the last one. Not the fourth one, but the last one. Yeah.
Wait, what is your favorite pizza? My favorite pizza? Yeah.
You just give her the microphone.
The normal one? Well, you want to have a lot of stuff on it? I don't know, the elite one? Yeah. Yeah. But the things that have a lot of things on it?
The Supreme.
The Supreme, I like that one.
Supreme. Why do you like the Supreme?
Because I don't know. Because when I think pizza with pepperoni is a little bit boring for me. You can taste it. But I like the Supreme because I love her.
Okay,
You
so.
like
So this is where my mind goes, right? When it's kind of like these kind of questions and I'm not getting anything, right? Like, because this is going to happen. This happens on interviews. If you're doing any kind of communication interviews for whatever reason, you might have somebody that just doesn't give you anything. And you're kind of sitting there like, come on, man, help me out a little bit. And so when was the last time you had pizza?
Friday.
Friday? What were you doing Friday?
Always over there. I was at home and my mom bring pizza because my grandparents were going to come to visit. And, okay, let's go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How often do your grandparents come?
Not so often. I get a lot of fun when they get them. We talk a lot. And,
Do
I don't
they
think pizza that big, but
Do they not live in Eagle
no,
Pass or?
no, they live in Monterrey. Next
Oh,
to-
okay, okay. Do you go visit them in Monterrey?
Yeah, we used to live there. Yeah, we like it. It's
Yeah.
cool.
What do you guys like doing in Monterrey?
Like, go to the circus in the mall. To the mall. With the pandemic, there's not a lot to do, but we like to stay in family and but we like also that our cousins is there and I like to babysit them. That's fun.
What's I guess with the pandemic and all that stuff, right? What's an outdoor thing that you all have started doing?
Oh, my YouTube channel. Yeah, I started YouTube
Yeah?
channel and
Okay.
I started more like on Instagram and TikTok and started working on the art projects a lot. And the only good thing that the pandemic got is a lot of free time at home and we want to be productive and make a schedule and things to do and keep going to our work. And,
Right. So let's slow down, right? Let's slow down, and that's something I like to say. Like I'm kind of just breaking down an interview process here, right? That's something that I kind of like to say in the middle. It's like let's slow down. Let's go back to YouTube channel. What are we doing with YouTube channel? What's your outdoorsy thing that you're doing with that? And we'll get back to TikTok and Instagram.
I want to talk about my opinion of movies. I made a video criticizing Encanto, telling my opinion of Encanto. But I also like to make animations, so I would like some animations there, make like a little fast resume of the movie. Like, this is Maribel. Nobody likes Maribel because she doesn't have a kid. And blah, 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 with drawings and animation. And I like to make animation, and we like to make in the future, anime or a short film with
What?
animation.
What program or what app are you using for animation?
Perfect.
Procreate.
Yeah.
It's killer, man. That app is super good. You have like an iPad that you're using?
Yeah. I have a profile and she's helping me also. Yeah.
So I'm pretty good at like tracing over stuff. I'll put that on the opacity down and I'll trace over stuff and that's how I do my stuff. That's cool. So, and then I just learned that you can do that animation stuff or even record your
Like
your drawings
recording.
while you're doing that
Yeah.
stuff, or even do like a little GIF.
Yeah.
You can, yeah, we can do like a
I make
little
some
GIF.
gigs for WhatsApp.
Okay. Yeah.
WhatsApp gigs, and I also like in my iPad. I make like well, I make a short film in my cell phone when I don't use my iPad. I make a short film,
Nice, nice.
animation short film. And it's really fun. I like it.
So that's amazing. That's amazing. I really do want to get like more into that. But are you all twins?
Yeah.
All right. So then now let's talk a little bit about the TikTok and the Instagram stuff, outdoorsy stuff. Is it outdoors or is it just kind of like a solo thing?
It's
Okay.
outdoors, but my sister taught me a lot about that stuff because she's like take more steps more. Like, I don't know. Yeah, she's take more steps more on the hill. Yeah, and in TikTok I take more slowly. I share my process of art. I share when I start illustration. I share my art portfolio. As I make animation. And in Instagram I like to share my favorite art pieces also. And I want to make a tutorial also. I make a tutorial and also make it on YouTube channel. I have only 2 videos, but I want to make more because my sister also have made a video with boys, and I want to make one of those. And she's helping me, and I'm helping her, and
Nice. So what do you normally draw? Like what's your go-to stuff that you're drawing?
Normally I draw. I like to draw cartoons also and illustration. And
What kind of cartoon? Like
cartoons?
yeah,
Yeah, I have a.
like do you have a character?
Yeah, I have original characters. Also, I have a little character that I want to make a TV series maybe someday, or maybe make some TikToks and that character like teach something to maybe drawing or maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe and yeah, and also I want to make tutorials.
Yeah. So, thank you. That's, so out of, thank you. Out of, just
Thank you.
pizza, out of just, what's your favorite pizza, we ended up going into what their passion was, right? Which is art and the animation and all that stuff. But I guess this is a question for y'all. What's the key thing that you need to do when you're, I'm gonna shut this one off real quick because I don't need it. I just don't want to bang it around. What's the key thing that I was doing to pick that up? Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Like, open conversation, like, open person, like, tell me more about that. So why do you like that? Like,
Right. So it's more of it's an active listening. I'm getting cues. I'm getting little words here and there, and I'm like, all right, save it. Like I kind of just do that in my head, right? And I just save it, and I was like, all right, let's stop. Let's hold up a little bit. The grandparents and all this stuff, and then where they from, Monterrey. We went to Monterrey, and then all of a sudden, what's kind of going on with pandemic from there. So like all that stuff is being stored in my head. I'm actively listening throughout the conversation. So it's super important to do that. That way you know where you're steering that conversation. You're the captain of the ship. You need to steer. Anytime that you're on an interview, you need to be able to steer, and it's super important when nobody's like giving you anything, right? So has anybody ever done like a interview for anybody? Like, I don't know if that's a part of yeah? What was the interview, man? Actually, you know what? Please, if you want to step down, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Let me give you the mic to do. What,
So I just sit here?
yeah, you sit there, yeah. Or if you want to stand.
Okay, I'll stand.
What interview did you do?
The first interview I did was, I worked for the newspaper over there in Eagle Pass.
Sure.
So I interviewed the mayor.
Oh.
We asked him about like, what he's gonna do with his term or whatever.
How did you feel? Like, were you nervous?
Not really.
Oh,
My coworker.
I'm an old hand at interview. I'm kidding.
Me and my coworker, we wrote all the questions and then we just showed up, we were working it out, edited it, posted it, and all that. That was pretty good. And then we did another interview for our class. It was the owner of our local skate shop, because over there it's very well known, and then just to have like a skate shop, just a counterculture like that. We interviewed him, we asked him questions about that, and like how he felt about that, and like the creation of the skate shop itself,
That's nice,
the
man.
skate parks and all that.
Y'all have a big skate community out there?
Kind of. It's been growing more recently. Yeah, it's like it was always there, at least since I've been growing up, at least. But it's been growing in popularity more, I think.
That's dope. I like that. And then who else has done the interview? No? Nobody else has done an interview?
Anna? The testing?
Oh, right. Yeah,
Right
I.
here. I'm sorry.
For one of my projects for the audio class, I made a documentary about how state exams actually affect students in the future. And I interviewed 4 different high school students about their opinion on it. And they all gave the same answer, which was no, they don't help much. But they all had like different opinions on it. And yeah, it was just really cool, like capturing like all these different people from like different walks of like childhood.
Wow, yeah. How did you prep for that?
It was, well, me and my team, they picked the topic actually, and we came up with the questions. And it started off with the basic question, as in like, do you think so? And why or why not? Or like, how does this affect a child's mentality? Or what are other stress factors that would affect the test itself? Or what other methods could we use to determine a child's like capability of learning?
Wow, and that's super. So what grade are y'all in?
I'm a junior.
Junior? What grade are you in?
I'm a senior.
Senior, and ladies over here? Seniors also? So it's juniors and seniors, basically. Okay. That's dope, man. All right, that's cool. Well, I guess one more question for you. Was there anything that you would want to change from that, like your approach?
My approach?
Yeah, your approach to that interview or to that documentary that you were doing.
I guess, because we did the interview in the library,
Mm-hmm.
and we have like a pretty, I guess, nice library, so it was kind of intimidating for like half of the students that like don't usually, come around. And
Right.
I didn't really know most of them, so I guess being on like a friend basis would have helped.
Right.
Them like open up, because there was this one kid, because we interviewed a straight student, a kid in welding, a kid in ROTC, and like a miscellaneous student, and a kid in football. And the kid in football, he's like a popular kid, but when I was interviewing him, I barely got anything out of him. And so, yeah. So
And everybody else was giving you a whole bunch of info, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's super weird like that. I totally get that. So this is my approach in something like that. And I probably should have done it here beforehand, but it's just like you guys came in and we started. But what I like to do is kind of just feel the room out a little bit and start talking to people and trying to get like personalities before the actual interview happens. So if there's any tips for you there, like, to take back home with you, is if you're in that same situation again where you don't know these people and you're trying to figure it out and you're kind of like intimidated or just a little nervous and butterflies and all that stuff, maybe kind of start talking to them a little bit about whatever you can think of, whether it's stupid small talk, weather conversations or whatever, but at the same time, you're actively listening because you don't ever know if they give you something right then and there that you can use on the interview process of it, okay? So you're always getting contact, like you're always curious. Always curious. Like I think that's the main thing for whenever anybody is a good interviewer, is you stay curious. Okay, so always remember that. Thank you. I appreciate both of you guys. And I think that's it for me on my end. Yeah, so the main thing, like I said, is make connections, right? Making connections with this art. This is a skill. This is an art that you guys are trying to figure out is communications, right? Make those connections. Actively listen. Be empathetic. If something's going on, try to don't. Ask why you're feeling like that. Try to find the reason behind it. It's almost like a therapist, really. And stay curious and stay passionate about your stuff, right? If at any point you're done with the whole deal, the communications of it or whatever, then it's fine. You might have outgrown it and it's time to move on to something else. But I would always stay passionate because then it'll never be a job. And so I guess I'll open it up for questions.
What was the name of that show? The Power Hour?
2 Hour Indie Power. Yeah, or it goes by 2 here also. Man, I'm super excited. We have a show coming up from let me just, because of the connections, right? Let me just tell you this real quick, because we're on that theme of making connections. Top Nachos comes down 2019, I think. It was one of our first shows that we did. They're from New York. They were touring. They picked up Lola Tribe from Austin. They came through Laredo. Eli and I hit it off real good. We kept in touch, right? He comes back. He messages me on Facebook. Says, "Hey, man, we're gonna come by again for spring break of 2020." Well, that never happened, right? We have a band coming with us also. Can y'all host them? This and that. I was like, yeah, man, for sure. Well, that never happened. Then we're doing this again. Like they're coming down March 15th. They're called Teenage Halloween. They've also been on Audio Tree Live and all that stuff. So if you want to check them out, they're pretty cool. It's emo punk kind of stuff. And so that's going on. while that's going on, I randomly started listening to this band called Carly Cosgrove. iCarly and Miranda Cosgrove, that's the same. All right, so anyway, so I started listening to that band. They start posting promotions called the 4333 Collective on Instagram. And I keep seeing them. I'm like, all right, well, these guys are pretty cool. And it's the same thing, like 2 Hour Indie Power, but over there, but super big. They got like 10,000 followers, and they're, like all hardcore over there, right? And then I follow them, and then 10 minutes later, I get a message. Hey man, weren't you the guy that was helping us go to Laredo? And this, I was like, who is our friend? Like, who's the mutual friend? And then it ended up being that Eli guy, right? I was like, Eli, we were going in Sweet Pill and this and that. So there's that scene, right? And all of a sudden, I kind of like, oh crap, I'm this nobody from Laredo, and there's like these guys over here in Philadelphia, like jamming out in this whole huge scene over there. Then, on top of that, there's another band, Greg Mendez, that is also now part of it. And I'm like, my buddy's like, hey, dude, you're like, we're all tied together. So, long story short, is that out of those conversations that you have, those with interviews with bands and all that stuff, you make connections like that. Right? So that's stuff that you kind of keep for the rest of your life. So it's not just. I guess that's the fulfilling part of it, is the connections you make rather than all the other stuff. So that's my spiel on it. All right. So now for real questions. Yes.
Okay. So since you started, how long did it take you to like make big connections, like meet really popular people and all that?
Wow. Popular people came from the radio, like Sin Cara. I don't know if y'all are like wrestling fans, but Sin Cara was on there. Lou Ferrigno from like the original Incredible Hulk, like from the 70s, like those famous kind of people. Yeah. Now, here's the other aspect of it, man. I didn't know I was doing this connections until maybe 2 years ago. So I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe total of 15 years, but it took me up until 2 years ago to figure that out, that's what was going on. So that's my kind of nugget to you all, like, it's connections, and that's kind of how it's been so super fulfilling. So if you can get that early on, man, you move mountains. So yeah, there you go. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody online? Nobody online. Yes, sir.
Where is the 2 Hour Indie Power hosted? Is it just internet broadcast, or is it?
Oh, so, yeah, that's funny you said that. It's on 107.3. We do it from 10 to midnight on Fridays. We're gonna start a podcast up on it because we just kind of, me and Raul, my buddy that originally was co-hosting with me moved over to Austin, and we're kind of getting back into like, let's start a podcast on it. So that will be called Two Hit Cast, and we should be doing that in the next couple of weeks. We already have a few episodes lined up. So yeah, I guess going back to your prep work and all that stuff, we have like 4 weeks already planned out. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have any dream interviews that you want to conduct?
I already had it. Going back to connections. So for the people online, any dream interviews? I got super into this band called Sincere Engineer about 2 years ago. And, through the whole 2 Hour Indie Power and all that stuff, I just got super into the band. And the name of the main girl that does the music, her name is Deanna Bellows. She was super approachable. Like, I messaged her through Instagram, hey, we're gonna be doing like a weekly thing of like, featured band of the week kind of thing. Can we use your video for this? Like, I don't know if there's any copyright issues or anything like that. And she's like, no, I made the stupid movie or the video, so yeah, do it. A few weeks later, I started like tweeting out, or not tweeting, Instagram and stuff out. she'll, repost it and all that stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool, so we had that conversation kind of like online going. And, then I asked her, I was like, hey, can we do, like, your album, like, you're doing new singles, can we just have an interview? And she's like, yeah, you come down, like, let's do it. I was able to get that interview, and that's kind of been my thing, because I guess it's not super big in the aspect of, like, media and mainstream and all that stuff, but to me, it's super important, because I'm a fan of it. If you're a fan of it, nobody can take that away from you. If you're a fan of what you're doing, of the people. So, yeah, super dope person. Then come to meet her in Austin this past November, and I thought maybe she wouldn't remember or whatever. She's like, hey, it's cool to finally meet you in person, dude. I was like, hey, look at that. So that was cool. The band's super dope. I'm gonna see him twice this coming April. I'm gonna follow him from San Antonio and Austin. That's been my dream. Dream and most favorite. And it's got 1,100 views on YouTube. What's up?
Okay. So there's many ways of making connections, right? But
Yeah.
which one would you say is probably the best one?
I would say that one, the one I just mentioned about the Annabellas, just because it was more so like too hip, 2 hour indie power kind of being out there, and we wouldn't have made those connections if that hadn't happened, So everything just kind of like, it was a domino effect of everything, like it was a radio show, the band's coming through, then, word of mouth. Too Hip is kind of out there in that community now, and people know that. Like in that scene, you guys might not, but in that scene, in that community, it's kind of known out there. So you really only need a community to help you out to be, pretty decent in kind of how you're going to be able to do things, like in the pull and pushing of concerts, events, and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of been my favorite one. Yes.
I know you mentioned that they're indie bands, but do you all, because they sound like they're kind of nationally, they exist across the country.
Right.
How do you all go about, or do you all ever share local people?
Oh, absolutely.
And then how do you go about, and this is curious, like you mentioned the copyright stuff, how do you go about that? I've always been confused about that, but I know that sometimes you can share it, but is it very, is it a tedious process where you have to write it all up to get the permissions, or is it just like a gentleman's agreement?
Oh, so, and where would you want to use the music?
No, not for me, but.
No, I'm speaking.
No, just on the radio, like 107.3.
Oh, well, no, because they pay for that stuff. Like, you kind of have like a bank of stuff that you can grab from.
And
And typically, if you're in like in that world, in that Discog and all that, like, in all that stuff, it's gonna be in there. It's gonna be in that bank. And you can use it, yeah. Mhm. Yeah. There's a super, like, man, there's all kinds of lawyers and stuff like that for that too, because there's algorithms and stuff like that, or somebody will walk into your location, and let's say it's a bar, and they're not paying that royalty fee, they could get like either sued or they could get shut down or whatever and fined. So there's the legal side of it where you can find that stuff to kind of get you off of the copyright stuff, but yeah. And then the other side, what was the other one, the first one?
Because I really love the playfulness of like local bands and trying to figure it out, and it sounded like the way you mentioned it, that they would already have some kind of business arrangement. But I remember back in the day, radio was like people would be able to master some kind of file and then be like, hey man, could you share this? You put it on radio, and it was like
Yeah, so people are using like SoundCloud now.
Just that.
They'll use SoundCloud, or they'll give you the USB with the file or whatever, and you can kind of just like dump it in there, or give you a Dropbox link. That would be the normal way of doing that now, if it's local. Could you pull it from Spotify or whatever and just plug it in? Yeah, sure, you can do that too. Yeah.
Question from
Oh, sure, sure.
So it says, hi, I'm a junior student at DMT Communications Department, and I have a question. Let's say that you either are interviewing or having a podcast with a guest, and then it turns into a biased hate topic. How can you resolve this?
That's a good question.
Oof.
That's a really good question.
You need to, so in this world of like cancel culture and stuff like that, you need to be super careful as to what you say and do. You have your morals, you have your ideas of what's good and bad, right? If you want to, have a healthy debate on that, and the interviewee is being, super biased and hateful and all that stuff, you can either one, tell them like, hey, I'm done with the conversation, those aren't my values, I don't want that to go out to my audience. You can do that, you can cut it off just like that. Or you can kind of probe a little bit and see if there's a way to kind of just give them a little bit of more background as to why you feel the way you feel, like I feel. Let's say it's let's say it's a Black Lives Matter kind of thing, right? And and Blue Lives Matter, right? Let's go that route, right? You could kind of go and talk about how, Black Lives Matter and what happened and all that stuff, and try to find, that not common ground, but be respectful to the person, and if they're being disrespectful to you, then I think that's the point where you cut it off. So, yeah, go ahead.
This is a bit of a weird question, honestly. Why
No
do you
weird
have
question.
your voice?
What's that?
Why do you have your voice? In radio, you need a strong voice. And is it something that can be picked up over time, or is it something that you need to practice to have like a stronger, clearer voice?
Dude, never, so don't think that you need a voice. Like, if you think you're that stupid radio kind of thing, and I'm sorry if I sound like that, it's just me now. But don't ever think you need a voice. The more unique your voice is, people are gonna remember. There's this guy that was on Opie and Anthony, Sam Roberts. Sam Roberts has the most twangy, most annoying voice in the whole world, yet he's doing it now. So because I can hear him, if I close my eyes and I hear him say anything, I know it's Sam Roberts because of that style of voice. So don't ever think that you need a voice, like a radio, quote unquote, radio voice to do radio.
No, I meant more as in how not to mumble better, how to more pronounce clearly.
Oh, yeah, that's just practice, man. Like you practice,
Enunciation?
enunciation, I'm opening, like you can't see me, but my mouth and it's all wet in here because I'm spitting all over the place. But yeah, it's practice. It's picking up little things like of what other people kind of say and enunciate it. It's not uncommon for somebody to tell me that I don't sound on some radio. It's one of those things, like, and I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just that I'm mindful as how I enunciate certain things.
Any techniques you practice?
No, just talk a lot, man. Just talk a lot and listen a lot too. I have a bad habit now of not enjoying podcasts and radio and stuff because I'm dissecting it. You know what I mean? Like I'm always trying to learn from it. I'm not listening to the content, or I'm watching a stupid YouTube because I like YouTube video. I like to make YouTube videos too. I'm watching a stupid YouTube video and I'm watching like where's the angle coming from? Like where are they putting that camera? Where are they putting? What was the cut here that they did? Like I'm always be a student of. Is what I'm saying. Anything else? All right. I think we're done, guys. Guys and gals, I appreciate it. Thank you for the questions and for being really cool. And thanks for coming down from Eagle Pass. Thank you in the little screen right there, everybody. And I hope you have a good day. And if y'all ever need me, I guess, you can email me at 2hip the number 2, HIPLDO@gmail. And I'll absolutely help out in whatever way, like whether it's YouTube videos, communications, any kind of questions on communications, I'll help you out with that.
Can you repeat your email, social media, please?
Social media is at JRAM Radio, JAYRAM Radio. And the email is the number 2, HIPLDO@gmail. Cool. Thanks, folks. Y'all have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to appreciate, J-Ron, we have something for you. Recognition for being with us and a little. You learn from him, it's really good. Okay, and he has been doing this for years, so I think that in the concept of pressing on, he's been doing that. He's been pressing on his skills, pressing on what he knows, and he's putting it out there for you guys. And he's very reachable, so reach him, make your craft better. And for those that are online, reach him too. Okay? Get your craft better. You want to be good in radio, podcasting, and just sometimes sharing ideas helps a lot when somebody else can tell you something else. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll continue with our next session in a couple of minutes. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Get some water. We'll start right now in 5 minutes with our next session.
I like your shoe game.
Thank you.
See you later, folks. Good luck on this stuff. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mouth position is very, like, it's very,